we have 2 games coming up, Serbia and Colombia, but we still haven't named our roster for interim manager Anthony Hudson, who was an assistant to Greg throughout the World Cup. We do know, though, one name, apparently, Julian Gressel, is going to be called in. 29-year-old who German-American, got his citizenship back in November. Very good on the right side. So many, I think he had 13 assists a couple years ago for Atlanta United. Just very good, very experienced up and down. He plays for Vancouver. Now he was at Atlanta, then DC, and then now he's at Vancouver. I don't know why people continue to get rid of him and have him move on. I think he's a tremendous player. But we have a lot of cover in that area, Heath Pearce. Or
is he able to get his citizenship while living in Canada?
That's a good. I don't know. He's got it though.
Sorry, that's a distraction. That's a distraction of a comment. But yeah. Anyways, I mean, I say that jokingly because there's a lot of players that have come from abroad and they get traded from a Canadian team to a U.S. team, and they're like families are stuck in those places till they can sort out like the not green cards, but like just residency, visa issues and things like that. And that can be I know a lot of people that have come to the U.S. and try to get their green cards or citizenship, and they can't leave for certain windows during certain times and things like that. Including Stefan Fry. That was one that he had experienced as well. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited about just another. He's been a long time high performer in Major League Soccer, and so somebody that I think is probably past what I'm super excited about. But for a January camp to just see how he can compete at that level, sure, why not?
Charlie, I want to talk to you about what your expectations are for this camp. Obviously, from the coaching staff, they're interim. So it's really hard to know. It's going to be littered with domestic players based here in MLS, most likely, unless there's a player that maybe isn't playing a lot for their respective club team somewhere else, and maybe can get called in and get a little bit of that seasoning, let's say, in this rare opportunity to have a January camp. What are your expectations?
I mean, by the way, I think he would have been the 6th right back at the World Cup if he had gotten it beforehand.
I'm surprised we didn't take him already, to be honest.
Probably
he was
8th,
available.
But
probably 8th, yeah.
Well, one, this is obviously just a call up for someone who's contributed to the league, has been, someone who I think if he was 23, 24, you could be really excited about the prospect, but he'll be 33 for the next World Cup. So it does nothing for me except, a congratulations that you got a call up, because, there are a number of players who get a call up for January camp, and that's their peak, right? That's it. So for him, he's been a tremendous professional. He's been in Major League Soccer for a long time, and he's done well. I think particularly he peaked with Atlanta United. But congrats to him for getting a call, because we all know what a feeling it is and an accomplishment. So I'm happy for him. But in terms of the national team, that does nothing for the national team moving forward. And then in terms of this camp, ultimately, you don't have a coach, because you don't know what the future looks like. And I'm still hopeful that we pull in a European manager who has had success in the past, whether, it's on the Champions League level, a top 5 European league level, or a national team level, but someone who's going to come in and demand respect, who can coach this group and get the most out of them, because I think that's what this group needs at the moment.
This game's in 9 days. It's in the first game's in 9 days. This to me is like where I'm starting to see. I'm starting to lose the value of this whole thing, right? Like,
yeah,
like
they're not even in camp. They're not even in camp, right?
They haven't even named the roster, dude. Like, what?
So yeah, like the whole point of January camp, for those who don't know, is you come in the first week of January.
At a couple weeks.
At the end of the January, and you say, okay, a lot of these guys have somewhat been working out and have a form of fitness, but still a ways off, and definitely sharpness is gone, because you're not going to get a real sharpness unless you're playing games and you're playing competitive short matches. So you need at least 2 weeks of a camp like this, where we're doing, the beat test. We're doing these full-on matches. You have double sessions every day. It's hardcore. And then you get to the end and you play a match, because you finally built yourself up to play a match. To play, you're not even getting a full week yet.
Well, they're in preseason now.
Right. And now they're getting
there are some players who aren't even in preseason yet, who haven't even, or who are still on vacation. I know that for a fact. So even if they are in preseason, it's the early, you're doing some jogging, maybe some ball work, but you're not playing competitively yet. So I think this is going to be a camp that really doesn't hold much merit, to be honest.
Unfortunately, yeah, because I think there's some value in having these, but it feels like we're losing out on that value to both of your guys' points. There's a couple questions here. One's from Dell, who says, what kind of players are these teams bringing to play us? Well, when I look at the Serbia roster, I haven't seen the Colombian one, but the Serbian roster has 3 MLS players. Dejan Joveljic, who plays for the LA Galaxy.
Oh, George Petrovic,
who plays for the New England Revolution. When we have Ranko Vasiljanovic, who plays for Vancouver. And all those guys have plenty of experience. Petrovic has been very good filling in for Matt Turner. He was up for MLS Goalkeeper of the Year last year as a finalist. Joveljic wanted more minutes, produced at a pretty high level. I think he scored more goals off the bench than any other player, definitely last year, but I think it was a Galaxy record. It could even be an MLS record. He had 11 goals coming off the bench. He's going to be a handful for whoever comes in, and you want to have a little bit of time. And the rest of the players are domestic players from Serbia.
Gordo in the YouTube comments, Camp Crumb Cake.
That's a good way to look at this particular one because there's no lead up time. The coaching staff is still interim, and obviously we'll have more to talk about once everything drops, but just be prepared for a heavy domestic group of players. And I'm curious to see how Anthony Hudson, the coach, can get everybody together. Now, back in 2007, I don't know if you guys were in that January camp for 2007, but Bob Bradley was interim during that camp and through the Mexico game in February.
I had a game in that camp. I played against the U.S. team in that camp. I was in preseason with my team, Swedish team.
That's right. We played against Hammarby. I scored in that game. It was a 1-0. I scored. I did off a free kick.
Show us the goal, Jimmy. Show us the goal. Roll the clip.
No. Here's what happened. It was a free kick off to the side, and I headed it in, and Taylor Twellman tried to claim it as his because we were right next to each other.
No, the flag was up, though.
Yeah, no chance. We won 1-0. Get out of here.
I remember playing Hammarby after that.
I remember scoring, and I remember being so excited because I scored the winner, and I was, or maybe it wasn't 2007. Maybe that was 2005.
Oh yeah, maybe 2000. No, I think 1986.
Yeah, it was me. I think Paul Caligiuri whipped it in for me, and
because they had just released the Walkman, and I remember Jimmy was really excited about the Walkman coming out. And like,
okay, I don't know. I walked myself into
down at Sam Goody looking at CDs, and
I went to the warehouse. Okay, I went to the warehouse. All right, so. Moving on from the January camp, obviously we'll have more info as it moves along, but let's talk about the FIFA Club World Cup because the Seattle Sounders are going to be facing either Al Ahly or Auckland City, and if they win that, they'll meet Real Madrid in the semi-final. So I don't expect any Sounders players to be called into this January camp. Heath, this is a pretty big deal. This is what we wanted, an MLS team in the Club World Cup, and now it's finally here. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I just want a good performances. Like for me, just don't get embarrassed. That's the Club World Cup for me. Is like go there and don't do anything that sets us back.
Sounds like the World Cup too, right?
Don't get
You think we're gonna get embarrassed by any of those teams?
I mean, Real Madrid.
They're good.
Real Madrid.
I mean,
not gonna get embarrassed.
No.
When did they start? When did the Sounders go in to start training for this? It kind of sucks for our calendar from an MLS perspective.
Well, this has always been the CONCACAF Champions League argument, right? Of coming into a season where it's like if you can get into that run and get into final part of the playoffs, because your first games coming out of the group stages, the way the CONCACAF Champions League worked was always that your first games after a shortened preseason were in a game of consequence. And so we've seen that have an effect on teams just naturally. You can't just you're not in midseason form. But against Real Madrid, who knows? It just depends who. But I think that they can show well. I don't think the Sounders showed particularly well after their Champions League run last season, but they've got quality players, World Cup veterans now.
Hey, that's you broke that down nice. I like that. You're spot on. Spot on.
That's it. That's all Charlie's adding to the conversation.
No, I was impressed with Heath's breakdown there.
Okay,
I'm just giving him love.
Dozens of people are saying that right now in the comments. They're just really impressed by just wow.
Whatever Heath says. who says he goes and works in the corporate environment for 90% of his day, but looks like he's just at the skateboarding park.
Well, yeah,
you and Tony Hawk.
He just got back from Big Bear.
I literally have a tie under this sweatshirt. You know.